welcome back post-lunch for a very stimulating thematic discussion on advancing gender equality in food security and nutrition for all girls. And let me also welcome our esteemed chair, Dr. Indra Chakrati. We have heard her in the last session, and we are looking for more in terms of her thematic expertise she has. So, ma'am, if I can request you to join us on dais. And Dr. Uni Krishnan, he is joining us online, and he is a Global Humanitarian Director, Plan International. Uni, can you hear us? Thank you. We're just checking the audio. If you can just also speak so that we know the audio is working.
We can hear you very well. Thank you.
We can't hear you still.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. Sharika Yunus, and she's the head of nutrition unit in World Food Program, which is a United Nations organization, WFP India. Welcome, Dr. Sharika. And Mr. Sabajit Singh Sahuja, and he's a disaster risk reduction specialist, UNICEF India. I think we have simultaneously some technical issue to resolve. Dr. Shivani Thal, and she's a nutrition officer, UNICEF Bihar. She's joining us online. Shivani, if we can check with you, your audio and camera working?
Yeah, can you see me and can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah, we can't see you, but we can, audio is very clear.
Okay, my camera is on otherwise, but maybe you can check.
You're audible, yeah. But we'll come back to this later.
Yeah, okay.
And
my camera is on otherwise, but maybe you can check.
Okay, and thank you and welcome Shivani, and also I'll take this opportunity to welcome Shri Deepak Meena ji, and he's a district magistrate, Siddharth Nagar, Government of Uttar Pradesh. Shri Meena ji, if you can hear us, and can we do the online check? So Dr. Meena will join us in a second, and we'll just check that. And let me also welcome Mr. Rajiv Kumar Singh. He's a General Secretary, and Dr. Shambhunath Singh Research Foundation from Varanasi, and they have a lot of work in field and has been working in government of Uttar Pradesh. Yeah. And tech team, can you check this echo that's coming in the audio here? Let me take this opportunity to welcome our esteemed panel, and who's going to deliberate and do the discourse on gender equality in food nutrition and food security and nutrition. And let me introduce our panel chair, Dr. Indra Chakrati. She's a Padma Shri and public health specialist. Dr. Chakravarti is a renowned, very renowned professional, and has been working and doing entire efforts towards scientific evidence of improving basics of public health related to environment sciences, nutrition, food security, food safety, water, sanitation, and hygiene. And Dr. Chakravarti has been there in different forums and has been recognized by the government, and as well as she has been as the director and chairperson of several advisory bodies of government and state level department, United Nations, NGOs, and a lot of corporates. She also has been a doctor, a PhD, and as well as a DSc in science. She's a fellow with several renowned national and international scientific bodies, including International Medical Science Academy. And Professor Chakravarti received the prestigious Padma Shri from the President of India in 2014 for her lifelong achievement and contributing immensely, tirelessly in the sector of public health and nutrition. And I'm going to hand over the dais to Dr. Chakravarti to steer the session. Dr. Chakravarti. Padmashri Deepak Meena ji, if you can, just let us know, can you hear us and your audio and camera is working? And Shri Deepak Meena ji, if you can, just let us know, can you hear us and your audio and camera is working? Yeah, thank you. Dr. Chakravarti, you will.
So we are welcome to all the speakers and people on the VC on advancing, the session. ये लाइट जरा बंद कर दीजिए ना प्लीज. हाँ, आइज में आ रहे हैं ना, कान. The word is नहीं नहीं सुनिए, this light is the problem with this voice. ऑडियो भी बंद, ऑडियो is problem. Audio is problem with this voice. Audio is repeating. Audio भी बंद, audio is problem.
Shivani.
But this problem with the, we can't talk. See, I'm talking, it's coming back later. See, it's coming again. Really irritating. Even my mic is off. Very disturbing if you talk and repeat comes back. 2 minutes back it's coming. Yeah. No, first speaker is going to join from London. That's all the problem. Unni Krishnan. So they have to put this straight, otherwise he can't join. Hello? 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 I know it's coming later. Hello? It's coming 2 minutes after I speak. What, never heard of such a thing? Never heard of such a thing. It's coming 2 minutes after. See, I'm not talking now. It's coming. What, never heard of such a thing?
They have this projection issues in lights are not very dark outside.
This is better. When you say something, it comes back 2 minutes later and you're talking this stuff 2 minutes. I've never had such a problem in my life. Can we start?
Will it be cured or not?
Can we start? See, after. See, I said, can we start 2-3 minutes back now? No, it doesn't take when I say it, it takes later. When I'm like this, it is talking. Can we start? Will you come back to?
No, it's okay. It's okay now.
Can we start? Can we start? So this is, I think, we started this session with a lot of humor. It's advancing gender equality in food security and nutrition for the all girls. So it's welcome all our very, very eminent speakers. We have actually 3 of them physically present, and Dr. Unni Krishnan, the Global Humanitarian Director from Plan International, I understand is going to join us from London right away. So before we go, would you like to introduce the speakers? Do you want very short, maybe, each one of them? So if you can introduce Dr. Krishnan, then I'll ask him to come. Do it very briefly. Do it very briefly because everybody's in a rush. Yeah. It's up to you. You can do it in one go if you can do it quickly. Then no, one go, you can finish all the speakers. That'll be good for you.
So, thank you, ma'am. So, let me also introduce Dr. Indra Chakrati. He's the Global Humanitarian Director of Plan International, and he has been working on health and patient issues for the past 20 years, and he has been a trained physician from Madras University and has had worked with a lot of organization, Oxfam Action, and Save the Children Brought in India. Yeah. So, thank you. Is it okay?
Yeah, give your Dr.
Okay, let me just introduce all the panelists here, and so that we can quickly go to the talk and the discussion. And Dr. Sharika Yunus, and she's graduated in medical from Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, Aligarh, and she's a gold medalist in community science. She has been working on a lot of projects with ASHA project in the Ministry of Rural Health Mission and Victorian Division and with Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and she is the focal point in the country on behalf of World Food Programme. And let me also take this opportunity again to introduce Mr. Sabirjit Singh Sahota, and he is working with the UNICEF India on disaster risk reduction. He's a specialist there, and I think that's a very interesting profile that we were working on. And he's an architect and urban planner by profession from last 25 years, and has been working in recognition of his contribution to the policy planning and implementation and of the DRR and humanitarian program in 2005. He was also part of international visitor leadership program of government of USA. In fact, that was Sahota. I'm also one of the IVLP fellow of 2012 on climate change and clean energy. And Dr. Shivani Dhar, let me just welcome her again. Dr. Shivani is a medical doctor with last 20 years. She is also from UNICEF, but she's going to bring a lot of regional perspective. She has been posted in Bihar from last 9 years. She's here. She's here. Dr. Shivani, yeah. And Shri Deepak Meena ji, he is IAS officer of 2011 batch from UP Cadre, and he is also he's done his bachelor's from Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and as well as had training of in different issues. Deepak Meena ji got his first posting as joint magistrate of Azamgarh. I think the most important part that I also would like to highlight that under his administrative guidance district, Siddharth Nagar is among the top 10 aspirational districts of India on development indicators set by Niti Aayog. And Rajiv Singh ji is the General Secretary of Dr. Shambhunath Singh Research Foundation. And from 31 years, almost 3 decades more than that, he has been heading and steering the organization and working with several non-governmental as well as government organizations. And so he worked with the UNICEF, WFP, CRY, Plan India, Save the Children, and other children-centric organizations. So they all bring, collectively more than 150 plus years of experience. So welcome again. So we have 3 people online. Three online. Okay. So it's going to be a long session because we have all the 6 speakers, 3 physically present and 3 online. So we wouldn't waste much time. We'll just go ahead. And so maybe questions can be after each speech. What do you suggest, Alka? The questions will be after each speech or at the end of it, because Mr. Unnikrishnan is going to go off after speaking. So if short questions immediately, okay. Can I ask Dr. Unnikrishnan, the Global Humanitarian Director, Plan International, a very renowned person, has just been introduced. Can you please join us from London? Please welcome, sir. London must be very cold, but Delhi is much more comfortable. But wish you could be here with us. Please join.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's freezing, but we don't have much pollution, so I won't complain. So a quick question before I proceed. I recognize you have been running a bit late, the whole event. So I want to check, do you still give me my 9 minutes or 10 minutes? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. You want 10 minutes?
I was asking how much time do you give me? Do you still give me the 10 minutes?
Yes, I give you 10 minutes, definitely.
Thank you very much.
10
All right.
minutes.
Thank you. So good day, everyone. Firstly, please allow me to congratulate the
minutes,
Plan
yeah.
India for organizing
With
this event.
questions,
And
15
second,
minutes, but with questions, 15 minutes.
sure. Thank you. So firstly, please allow me to congratulate Plan India for organizing this event. And secondly, thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor to be with you, Madam Chair, and other speakers, and you all. I'm not an expert on food and nutrition related matters in the Indian context, and today I won't pretend to be one. So today I will focus on three things. Firstly, the global trends we are seeing on hunger and nutrition,
What's this?
insecurity, and what to expect.
This can't be, stop it.
Secondly, a couple of myths about hunger. And thirdly, interventions that can make a real difference in the lives of the most marginalized children, especially girls, and how to make sure that we don't leave them behind. So firstly, about trends. A few weeks ago, I was visiting Desse in northern
Dr.
Ethiopia.
Unikrishnan, can I tell you to stop? There's some problem with your audio system. Your word is coming back. Just wait, just a little bit. Just a minute. Just I'll asking Alka to make it all right. Because the audio system is coming back after 2 minutes. Just, I'm sorry about it. Just very sorry about it.
No problem, madam. Thank you.
I do not trust that they will be able to do anymore. So let's look at plan B.
Mr. Unikrishnan?
Yep.
Yeah, can you try? You can speak. Sorry about it, interrupting you.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you try? You can speak. Sorry about it, interrupting you.
No problem. Can you hear me now?
Mr. Unikrishnan?
Yes, madam. Yeah.
Can you just speak once again? A
Yeah.
long sentence.
Right. Are you able to hear me now?
We are able to hear you. See, it's coming back.
Okay. Should we just test whether Shivani, when you are joining on Zoom, is it coming in real time or is it getting delayed? Then I'll try to see if it is a problem from my side. So Shivani, do you want to give it a try with the soundbite?
You, not from your side. It's happening earlier.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's happening for long. No, not from your side.
Yeah,
No
I
fault
think
from your
it's
side.
with everybody. Even when I was speaking earlier, it was happening. So it's a problem there.
Yeah.
Can you speak?
Yep. Yeah. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, yes. Yes, please go ahead.
Right. Okay. So I'll just repeat one of the important things you need to recognize, that is, I'm not an expert on food and nutrition related matters in the Indian context, and today I won't pretend to be one. So today I'm going to focus on three things. Firstly, about some global trends, what we are seeing and what to expect. The second one, a couple of myths about hunger, especially in humanitarian settings. And the third one, the interventions that can make a real difference in the lives of the most marginalized children, especially girls, and how to make sure that we don't leave them behind. So firstly, about trends. A few weeks ago, I was visiting Desse in northern Ethiopia. And there in a makeshift relief camp, I met Sarah, a 12-year-old child. As you know, there is a war that's happening in Tigray in the north of Ethiopia, which has resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people, especially children. Sarah told me that she was hungry, she was dehydrated, and she walked for over 400 plus kilometers, dodging bullets and battlefield gunfire. So if you pan the camera from Zara and Ethiopia to the rest of the world, globally tonight, that's every night, over 811 million people are going to bed hungry. That is, if you put all the hungry people in the world in a single place, that will be the third most populous country after China and India. Conflict, COVID-19, pandemic, and the climate emergency are driving the hunger worldwide. Last week, the UN, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, gave a forecast for 2022. It's a grim forecast. 274 million people worldwide will need some form of emergency assistance next year. This marks a 250% increase since 2015. The UN has appealed for $41 billion, and this is double the amount which the UN sought 4 years ago. So globally in 2021, 41 million people are at imminent risk of famine. Among the most at risk are people facing catastrophic hunger in Afghanistan, South Sudan, Yemen, parts of Ethiopia, and Madagascar. The forecast shows that next year and in the near future, it is only likely to get worse. It is not just food, but it's time and compassion are also running out fast for people who are caught up in the hunger crisis. So my second point is about busting a couple of myths. It's easy to think that if hunger is the problem, food is the only solution. So in addition to dry rations, community kitchens and therapeutic feeding, direct cash transfers and voucher assistance to families facing urgent needs can play a critical role in stopping a food crisis on its track. School meal programs are a lifeline in such settings. But with the COVID-19 pandemic-related lockdowns, and schools converted into temporary relief camps, these programs have been forced to close. Solutions must address both immediate food and nutrition insecurity, as well as provide livelihood opportunities so as to break the cycle of hunger and poverty. The crisis highlights the importance of existing social protection and safety net programs, such as the Mahatma Gandhi Employment Guarantee Scheme in India. The second myth, it's one of the most repeated statements in the past couple of years. We keep hearing from politicians all over the world that COVID-19 pandemic is a big storm. We all are in this together. Well, I agree to disagree. We all may be in the same storm, but some people are traveling on in shaky and broken boats. I'm referring to children who are caught up in hunger zones and war and conflict settings, as well as refugees. The increase in hunger in 2020 was higher than for the previous 5 years combined. Conflicts remain the biggest driver of food insecurity, accounting for 65% of the people facing acute food insecurity. The world is not on its track at all to achieve any of the sustainable development goals related to nutrition by 2030. My third point is about vulnerability. Who exactly is vulnerable? How do we protect them? And what interventions make a real difference in hunger settings? Humanitarian emergencies, as we all know, disproportionately impact children and women. During a hunger crisis, girls eat less and girls often eat last. Women and children are vulnerable in all 4 dimensions of food security, that is availability, access, utilization, and stability. Children are often pulled out from schools for child labor. Girls are at heightened risk of being forced into child or early marriage, early pregnancy, as well as sexual exploitation. While in another country in the Horn of Africa a couple of years ago, during another hunger crisis, my colleagues told me that every girl walking on the streets is walking with a price tag on her forehead. That is how they are forced into sexual exploitation, often for food and at times being trafficked. Families may often marry their daughters to have one less mouth to feed. So, what interventions can make a real difference and what interventions are scalable? Allow me to highlight the top three or four. Mahatma Gandhi once said, for a hungry child, a piece of bread is the face of hope. So pragmatic actions definitely come first. So nutritional interventions targeting children under 5, adolescent girls, and pregnant and nursing mothers should be a priority. The second one is about interventions focusing on both nutrition needs as well as protection measures. It needs to go hand in hand, including ensuring that people who are receiving assistance in emergency relief distribution sites are not subject to any form of exploitation. Separated and unaccompanied children need special attention, especially focusing on early childcare and development to stop stunting. The next one is about training both the nutrition staff to identify parents who are in distress or at risk of negative coping mechanisms and provide both financial assistance and, if necessary and if relevant, psychological first aid. So finally, about establishing protection help desks at distribution sites where children and families, especially girls, can access essential information regarding child protection services and access multi-sectoral referrals. True, there are 100 things to be done, and I believe children are a great place to start. Thank you for listening.
Then I think a great speech, short but extremely useful, because you have linked nutrition to protection and protection to trust. I think that's basically, we are talking of comprehensive support. There cannot be a better comprehensive support than this. I think what you need is exactly, emotionally, these are the three essential things that one has to give for any kind of control. And I think nutrition is no different, that to make people, undernourished children, give them the support, give them the protection, give them the trust where they can go. I think this is extremely important, what you said, all linked factors. From morning we're talking of comprehensive steps to be taken. I think we've just put in three very basic words. What does it really mean? What does comprehension mean? Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions? We don't have a coordinator here. Did Alka disappear? Is there any questions? Is there any questions coming? Any questions have come? Any questions for? Okay. Any questions from other speakers? Any question?
One question.
Yeah, Unni, no, I think you gave the global perspective, but what are the key learnings from the global experiences for India, especially in the coming few years? Not just immediately, but also because the trajectory is quite kind of visible, and especially in the context of climate, hydrological disasters that we see more frequently happening. What would your perspective be in terms of looking at the food security and the nutrition challenge? What learnings for India?
Thank you. As if I would like to stick with very quickly three things. Firstly, on the technical level, I think that comprehensive approach and a holistic approach is absolutely critical if you want to make a difference, especially amongst young children. And at the same time, improving targeting for the most vulnerable is going to be absolutely critical, because it's only 1/3 of the resources that are available sometimes in a hunger or in a food crisis zone. So targeting better is going to be critical. The second one is a controversial one, and I'm not an expert, so I will leave it with the rest of the panelists to comment on it. But I think there is a bigger push coming for non-dairy products. And we know that for many reasons, the dairy products dominate when it comes to addressing hunger as well as undernutrition. But in many parts of the world, looking at non-dairy products is already gaining momentum, especially looking at how local women's groups and small farmers can actually contribute in a big way to provide and create those social safety nets. And finally, the third one I would say is an important role which the media has to play, because you don't hear the news about hunger until children actually start dying in the rest of the world. That's the case in most of the places. So I think, as Albert Camus once said, one of the best lessons in public health comes from a theater activist rather than a medical doctor, who famously said, the best way to deal with plague is by being honest about it. So how do you make sure that you create a culture where there is acceptance for the difficult truth that, yes, there is a problem of hunger and possibly starvation, and start addressing it early? Because if you act early with very limited resources and through a community approach, you can actually lift children very quickly. And if you leave it longer, you're talking about therapeutic feeding, which is very expensive. There is no guarantee that it will work in all contexts, and it will be diverting the precious resources which otherwise could save millions of lives.
Thank you, Dr. Unnikrishnan. Thank you very much for joining us. Very valuable words. We will be putting it into the recommendations that we draw up tomorrow on these. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. It's a real honor to meet you, and all the very best for the rest of the discussions. Thank you.
I'll ask Asif to inform me when you come to India. Okay. We go to the next one. Do you want? That's up to you. Do you want me to call him right now, or we go as per the program? So you would like me to jump others, and is it all right with the other speakers? Pardon? Okay. Mr. Meena? Mr. Meena, are you there?
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Pulkit Garg, CDO Siddharth Nagar. I hope everyone can listen to me.
Is it Mr.
Yes, ma'am. I'm actually in place of Mr. Deepak Meena, who is my district magistrate. Due to a visit of a protocol visit, he was not able to attend. I am Chief Development Officer here. My name is Pulkit Garg.
Okay. You are from one of the most difficult aspirational districts of the country. So we are looking forward to hearing from you. What are the actions that you are taking, especially with regards to overcoming the malnourishment problem with children after the COVID, or even any time? I don't think you can hear me.
Absolutely, ma'am. Should I start, ma'am?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am. I can hear you. Can you hear me, ma'am?
You can't hear me.
Ma'am, I can listen to you, ma'am. I can listen to you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Definitely. So, ma'am, I would first like to tell some basic facts about District Siddharth Nagar. So, District Siddharth Nagar is an aspirational district. This aspirational district program has been taken up since 2018. I would like to also mention that District Siddharth Nagar is at the Nepal border. It is near Gorakhpur district. It is around 400 kilometers away from Lucknow. And it primarily has been, I have been posted here since the past 2 years now. So I'm the Chief Development Officer here. And since the past 2 years, the difficulties, or I believe primarily it has been an aspirational district, fundamentally due to its geographical distance. So it is definitely located, and its remoteness, as it is located at the Nepal border. So also one of the reasons that it is backward is because it is really afflicted by flood as well. So I'm just giving this brief. So for 3 months, every activity really stops here, and a lot of people are displaced due to those 3 months as well. So a tragedy like COVID, let's say, gets maybe to a certain extent repeated every year here for 3 months, because all the routine activities, everything is everyone almost is displaced for those 3 months from their place of stay. So first of all, I would like to tell that in the district, we have around 4 lakh people, or 4 lakh, let me say, those children who are affected by our ICDS program. So ICDS program, as we all know, is the child development scheme that has been taken up by the government of India, and we are implementing it here on a very big scale. So the district has a population of around 30 lakhs. So we have around 4.5 lakh children in our schools and nearly 4 lakh kids in our Anganwadis. So that is the scale that we are talking about. We have more than 2,000 Anganwadis here. So as we can see, the scale is very huge, and it is difficult to implement everything that has been planned in those 2,100 Anganwadis that are there in the district. So some of the major challenges that we have seen or that we face in the district, and particularly as we know that all these challenges, they have been exacerbated by the COVID crisis that has been facing us. So primarily, I would like to focus on some of the major challenges that the district faces. We know as because the topic is particularly advancing gender equality in food security. So I would like to highlight, as we know that we're taking every girl child along, that is primarily the major theme. So when we talk about that, so primarily we know that women are major stakeholders in giving care and nutrition, delivering nutrition to the children who are coming up. So primarily it is, as we know, the literacy rate here is really low amongst the women. It is at 48% in the district. While for men it is 70%, it is only 48% in the women. And when you talk about literacy rate, it is definitely, it correlates to their awareness levels as well. So when we talk about nutrition, this is really something that is hindering us. So it is not really the food security. They have sufficient amount of foods. We have never heard about that due to the lack of a food, someone died. But we all know the problem is in the quality of the food or the nutrient intake or the balanced diet that must be taken up. So we know that this is primarily a rice eating area. So people eat rice, but due to a lack of the trend of eating vegetables, eating fruits, eating this wholesome diet has not yet been included in the general culture. And it is primarily, this is one of the reasons, and the lack of awareness around this is one of the major issues as to how to tackle this. So that everyone knows that these are the insufficient quantities, these nutrients or these minerals also need to be taken up. Second, I would like to also mention that there are still, due to lack of hygiene or lack of general sanitization, we are facing certain challenges in the way in which after the food intake, whether it be food retention, whether it be related to health, which leads to malnutrition. So there are certain unhygienic environments that we have to focus on. So this is another one of a basic challenge. The third challenge that we face is primarily how do we ensure that how do we know that make parents to understand that what is it that really the child need to play and the child needs to have at the ground level, and exactly how do we ensure that they follow a separate Katori concept, which is known as a Lori story Katori concept. So primarily, like they eat in the same plate. So, but how do we? So due to those things, they don't know exactly how much are we feeding the child. So if these things which are behavioral changes. So how do we ensure these behavioral changes? So over a period of time, we have tried to focus on these changes, and even anemia is a very big challenge here. So even when we talk about anemia, so anemia can be due to a lot of factors, and primarily in the adolescent girls also. So over a period of time, there has been a nationwide abhiyan which has been launched, which is called the Sambhav Abhiyan, which was launched a couple of months ago in September under the Sambhav Abhiyan. So through our infrastructure, we had a massive survey during which we had a survey of all the children, all the adolescent girls who are out of school. We had their survey, and we found out that 1,610 were severely inaccurate SAM children, which we call. So SAM children were identified. In those 4,736 adolescent girls were identified who were out of school, and those who had to be benefited. So through these surveys, first of all, we identified our prime vulnerable groups. After identifying them, it is very important that how do we work on them? These groups which are the most vulnerable, the severely and acute malnourished and the adolescent girls who are out of primary have been our targets in the district. So for the adolescent girls, we have tried to focus in 2-3 ways on their nutrition levels who are out of school. First of all, we have launched a Sharda program, and it is a statewide program. It is about their delivery, their implementation at the district level. So we have really focused on these programs for the adolescent girls. Under the Sharda program, more than 10,000 girls who were out of school. Out of them, we were successfully able to enroll more than 5,000 girls in the schools. Still 5,000 are left. We are also trying a gradual process, but this has been a major achievement for the district as well, that these adolescent girls were identified, who were out of school, and they were enrolled. Their being out of school had multiple reasons. They were sensitized about it. Their parents were sensitized about it. A massive abhiyan was launched for this. So through the Sharda program, we got this girls registered. How do we ensure that they know about anemia? If the girls are anemic, how do we cure that? So first of all, our primary test is to ensure that the regular checkup of the girls is done to ensure that whether they are anemic or if they are not anemic. So it is done in 2 ways. First of all, for out of school girls, VHND, a Village Health and Nutrition Day, is organized every Wednesday and Saturday through our ASHAs and ANMs. In those VHNDs, this Village Health Nutrition Day, so all the adolescent girls, all the children, they are brought to this VHND. So everyone is given a Bulawa Palchi by our Ashas. They go house to house. They tell that today is a VHND and you must come. These girls are then brought to the VHND. Their BMI is calculated, their height, weight, different levels, different tests are done, blood tests are done. So through them, we first of all identify the anemic girls. We also have iron and folic acid tablets, IFA tablets, which have to be distributed mandatorily to the girls who are identified anemic in these VHNDs. This is for the out-of-school girls. The second that we focus on are the girls who are studying in the schools. We have a program called Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram, RBSK. Through RBSK, we have different teams. Like we have 32 teams in the district. Every team has a doctor and there are 2 paramedical staff. These teams are given a roster in every month. In 1 month, they have to cover each school in their given blocks or in their given areas. So this way, they are given all proper equipment, they are given proper cards for tracking of every child. So every month they do they do health checks of the students who are studying in the schools. So that way, in the schools, we identify who are the people who are facing from malnutrition or they're anemic. or any other such ailments. So also another focus has been, after identifying, as I already mentioned, distribution, along with distribution of iron and folic acid tablets, distribution of dry ration to the registered adolescent girls is also being done. So in dry ration, we primarily give rice, wheat, chana dal. Also the rice that we get is fortified rice. Wheat, chana dal, we also give fortified edible oil. There is a month, these are given all monthly, and tri-monthly ghee, milk is given. And to all the people who are registered under the adolescent girls who are out of school. So these are some of the initiatives. Also, I would like to clearly mention another thing which we have been really working on, and that is related to the fundamental concept, as we know, in an Anganwadi, where kids of less than 6 years, they go to study, they go to like learn and for group activities. Women who are pregnant or lactating, they go to these Anganwadis. Adolescent girls go to Anganwadi. So we have really pushed the Nutri Gardens. So Nutri Gardens is something which we are really working on. Out of the Anganwadis that we have, more than 2,000 Nutri Gardens have already been made in the district. So while some have been made model Anganwadis, we are also trying to make everyone a model Anganwadi. Right now, we have made 200 model Anganwadis, and for the rest of the Anganwadis, all the seeds related to these Nutri Gardens, they have been given. So as to ensure that apart from the things that the government is giving, to inculcate a sense of responsibility amongst the Anganwadis as well as the parents of the kids who come there, as in the villages as well. So to ensure that locally grown vegetables, which they are used to eating or which they are more likely to eat, they are grown there. So through this, we are trying to ensure that all the children who come to Anganwadis. So we have also done a convergence with Manrega in the nutritional gardens, because primarily we have seen that might be like cattle can come and destroy those Nutri Gardens. So we have created a proper infrastructure and a proper net system through which these Nutri Gardens can be protected. In addition to that, because as we already mentioned in Niti Aayog, since the inception of Aspirational District Program, in health and nutrition, we Siddharthnagar, due to the implementation of all these measures, we have been all India ranked 4th, and overall we have been ranked 2nd in the country. So we get certain funds from the Niti Aayog, which for a good performance. So we are creating 14 model Anganwadis, one in each block. We have 14 blocks. So we are creating one model Anganwadi in each block, so that the best practices can be replicated in other Anganwadis of the blocks as well. So also on menstrual hygiene, I think we have really focused on menstrual hygiene also through our SHGs. So what happens is, so normally what happens is, through hospitals or through our distribution channels, we give sanitary pads to the women. So this is one channel that we are. So this is one channel what we are following. Another channel that we are following is, and what we have found to be more effective, is the women self-help groups. There are certain self-help groups in the district. They have been particularly trained to create menstrual pads, and they are selling those menstrual pads through their own channels. So even when we found that even when we gave them menstrual pads through our official channels, girls or women were not using it as much. So they were either discarding it, or they were not interested in using it.
Finish up in the next 2 minutes, because there are 620 participants who are listening to you electronically, so they might have some questions. So can you please finish it off in another 2 minutes, please?
Absolutely, ma'am. So with respect to the menstrual hygiene also, we have created those self-help groups who, apart from creating those menstrual pads, they have their own supply chains. They use the women of the villages. They are promoting and they are marketing their menstrual hygiene pads. So that has really created an impact on on the menstrual hygiene. So I would like to I'd like to finish that during the COVID times, particularly as the things got more challenging for us, we really involved the community participation a lot. we formed a Nigrani Samiti at the Gram Panchayat level. At the Gram Panchayat level, this Nigrani Samiti was headed by the Gram Pradhan, Anganwadi, Asha, and the Gram Secretary, which we call. So these were the members of that Nigrani Samiti. And it was the responsibility of this Nigrani Samiti to ensure that all the ration that was going to the Anganwadis, it is being distributed properly. The VHNDs, the Village and Health Nutrition Days, are they being held properly? Are the women coming to the VHNDs? So finally, we found out through community participation only that it is possible that in these challenging times, this awareness, engaging in and awareness in the community, that is the only way out, and this is what we found most effective. So this is what I would like to end with, and I would like to thank again for inviting District Siddharthnagar and Mr. Deepak sir and me for the conference. Thank you.
Give us two points which you think plan should take ahead to advance gender equality in food security and nutrition. Can you just give two things that you feel plan should take forward? Just two recommendations.
I think
Community participation. So strengthening that. So can you give just two suggestions? 2 points which you think plan should take ahead.
Ma'am, primarily I think a massive awareness campaign regarding the nutritional balance which is required and a balanced food intake. So we definitely need that to make people more aware. And I think plan is already doing a very good work in community participation. We can all focus more on community participation now. I think these are the 2 points now.
I mean, you should be very proud of what you are doing in Siddharthnagar. I think you're pursuing wonderful work and you're touching up using all the government resources that are available, bringing them together, and that's a very remarkable thing to do. I can understand how overworked you are, but all the best. I think it's a wonderful opportunity which you are not letting go. Congratulations and thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Okay, now
so much.
Going back to your first physical presentation of this session, Dr. Sharika Yunus. She's the head of nutrition unit of the World Food Program in India. She's very well known for the wonderful work that she has been doing for several years now with the World Food Program. You know, World Food Program feeds people in the most difficult times. We support especially children in the most difficult times. So we look forward to hearing from you, especially your recommendations eventually on what do you think in future World Food Program can do to advance gender equality in food security and nutrition, and also along with that, how do you think what plan can do with regards to that? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for firstly giving an opportunity to the World Food Program to share some of its work and its perspective on food and nutrition security in India, and especially how within that gender can be addressed. For those of you who may not know, the World Food Program, as ma'am said, is the food aid arm of the United Nations. We've had presence in India since 1963. Early on, when we had presence in India, there was food aid which was done in the country, and over a period of time, with India becoming food secure and becoming a middle income country, the need for food aid was reduced, and therefore the World Food Program changed the way it functioned in India and moved from food assistance to technical assistance. The focus of our technical assistance in India is primarily on the food-based safety nets. And what we do, if I were to sum it up in one line, we look at improving the efficiency and the nutritional effectiveness of the 3 food-based safety nets in the country. During my talk, I'll try and talk a bit about the impact of COVID on food and nutrition security. And then perhaps move on to the PM portion, the erstwhile midday meal scheme, what have been the adaptations and what's the status of implementation there? What have been some of the challenges of the midday meal scheme? And then perhaps talk a bit about our work where we think we are addressing gender in some finite way. So if we talk about COVID, what COVID has done and the resultant lockdowns have done is that It disrupted the food supply chains. It led to because of the lockdowns, etc., it led to huge price rise in commodities. It affected livelihoods. There was a huge migration, the urban migrant crisis migration, which took place in the country from one part of the country to several thousand kilometers away to other parts of the country. What it eventually led to was reduction in the dietary diversity on the plate and families going for easy, off-the-shelf, cheap, but at the same time, let's say, nutritionally inappropriate commodities were being bought in large quantities because they were looking for commodities which had a stable shelf life. So those were some of the impacts of COVID on nutrition and food security. But the government did come up with a very robust response. And the reason why it could come up with a robust response was because we have the National Food Security Act 2013 in place, which then makes food an entitlement for about 2/3 of our population. And the National Food Security Act encompasses 3 schemes, one which is the public distribution system, the second which is the PM Poshan or the midday meal scheme, which covers school-age children between the ages of 6 to 14 studying between grades 1 to 8. And the third, which is the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme, which covers children less than 6 years of age, pregnant lactating women, and adolescent girls. So because of the fact that NFSA makes food an entitlement, there were various modifications which were done to the implementation of the scheme, and I'll talk in particular about the modifications which were made to the school meals program. And the government, in its best intentions, did try and address the food and nutrition security issue in the country. In the midday meal program, what happened very early on when COVID sort of came upon us in March last year, the government issued guidelines to all the states to move away from a hot cook model to a model where a food security allowance was given. The food security allowance basically encompasses passing on the cooking cost to the school children as well as passing on grains to the school children. Grains are passed on to the school children in terms of each school child between grades 1 to 5 is entitled to 100 grams of grain per day, and each child studying between grades 6 to 8 in government and government-aided schools is entitled to about 150 grams per day. So the idea was to pass on the grains as well as the cooking cost to the conversion cost. And as we went through the different phases of the pandemic, these guidelines were adapted. They were also adapted by the national government to ensure that there was a nutritional quality in the meal which was also being passed on in terms of dry rations. However, what we've been seeing in terms of the information that we've been gathering from the states, not necessarily the district level where all the implementation is, that the states have also been taking these guidelines very well and coming out with state-specific guidelines, which are then further passed on to the districts. But there are a couple of things which are happening in the households. One, because it is a dry ration which is being given to adolescent children and adolescent girls, because it's basically grains which are being given, it then finds a way into the family pot and it leads to sharing within the family. So something which was meant for just one child is then shared within the family. What is also happening is that there are huge delays between ideally, if a child is going to school, he gets a hot cooked meal every day. But then because these are dry rations which are being passed on, these are clubbed either as monthly distributions or quarterly distributions. So there are delays in implementation. In some cases, in some states, the delays are for about 3 months or more. So if we are looking at the quarter between October to December, then between October to December, the distribution of dry ration for the period somewhere between April to June may be taking place. So there are huge gaps and delays in implementation there. Also, because most of the states are providing a dry ration, there is very limited diversity in the meal which is actually reaching the school child. So there are some of these loopholes. I think the guidelines have gone on well, but as with everything in the country, there are issues in terms of implementation and how the guidelines are really being implemented at the district, the block, and the village level, where some of the issues are. Just one little example that I would want to talk about in terms of our work on gender, food, and nutrition security is our work with the Women's Self-Help Group and in the ICDS. So you're aware that in the ICDS there's supplementary nutrition which is given to children less than 6 years of age, and it's given to pregnant lactating women and adolescent girls. Within that, children between 6 to 36 months of age and pregnant lactating women get something which is called as a take-home ration. These take-home rations, especially for younger kids, are supposed to be blended products, sort of take-home rations. So because states had moved to dry rations, etc., it was also leading to a lot of policy change, because ideally it is a take-home ration which is a fortified blended food which should ideally be distributed. So we were reached out to by the government of Uttar Pradesh, and they wanted to set up a model where these take-home rations are produced by women's self-help groups. Then they are bought by the Integrated Child Development Services scheme and then distributed further to pregnant lactating women and children between 6 to 36 months of age. And to our mind, we're still working with the government of Uttar Pradesh in terms of implementing this model. We've equipped 2 women's self-help group with industrial scale equipment for production of these take-home rations. But this comes across as an excellent model, which not only ensures the availability of a nutritious, quality assured, safe take-home ration for children between 6 to 36 months and pregnant lactating women, but at the same time it also addresses gender issues, it leads to women empowerment, it also provides an option of livelihoods. So that is where I sort of end sharing some of our experience in terms of what I see could be the 2 topmost recommendations that plan could take forward. And of course, as the World Food Programme, we are very committed to food and nutrition security and addressing that in the country along with gender issues. But for what plan can take forward is that when we implement social protection programs, somehow there's a huge generalization in the implementation of the social protection programs. And what is needed is that these social protection programs need to be adapted to different needs and capacities of women, children, men, and boys and girls. Also, there needs to be equal participation in the social protection or the food-based safety nets by both sexes, and we need to find ways of ensuring that it's there. With that, I hope I've addressed most of what was required.
I think that's a very nice suggestion, and I think since Plan is already doing so much of work on awareness generation, ground level work, so I think it'll be easier for them to get it from the community, find out the gaps and the loopholes and plug them. I think that's something which, and I think World Food Programme will be in a way, I think partnering this with World Food Programme would be an excellent opportunity for you. So maybe later on you can perhaps talk to thank you, Joyasha. Again, I've got to mix up with your name. Shari, I'm writing in Bengali now, so I don't forget it. Sharika is easy to write in Bengali. So Sharika, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, very targeted and exactly what's needed. And I would perhaps ask you a couple of questions later on. Why the wasting, stunting, undernourishment is not decreasing to the extent that we have been wanting. It's something I've been asking myself, asking others. So maybe at the end of it, to the whole panel. I mean, why is it that we are not able to touch upon stunting, wasting, especially severe wasting has increased? So why? Maybe some of you are asking the question earlier. Because, and another very peculiar thing, we talked to anemia in the morning, as I see, you'd find that anemia is much more in women than men. But why is it normal women are more anemic compared to pregnant women? Does that mean that our programs for the pregnant woman has succeeded better than what we have touched normal women? Those are the gaps which you need to look into and forget. Pregnant women are less anemic compared to normal and non-pregnant women. It is the first time this is happening. So that is also something, your lecture of the finding out, adapt to the specific needs comes out very clearly. So maybe think over and answer later on. Okay. Now we come to Mr. Sarvajit Singh Sahota, very interesting. He's going to speak on nutrition, basically an architect and an urban planner, looks after disaster risk reduction specialist. We'll now talk on nutrition. So we are really waiting to hear from you, because I think you're going to bring some very, very new concept into the whole
So
process.
one of the things which architects do very well
Yes.
is to visualize
Yeah.
things, connecting things, and bringing things together. And we can really bring desperately different things together and make some beautiful buildings. So
Can't wait hearing from you.
I have my other colleague Shivani as well on this, so maybe she might also speak about similar things which I'm going to speak. So I'll keep myself brief. In 2016, after many decades of work on nutrition and the similar frustration which you mentioned, that we're not making enough progress, etc., etc., we were looking for, we were also acutely aware about the food insecurity issue, and we as an agency were not sort of fully into it. WFP addresses that as a mandate, and we have a mandate to address nutrition, but with food insecurity I think it wasn't working. So we started looking at ways of addressing it, and diet diversity became a sort of a pathway to look at food insecurity, etc. And along that time, Government of India started the National Rural Livelihoods
Your
Mission.
name in Bengali on this.
So we partnered with NRLM to particularly when we saw there was so much of scope for improvement, and we saw that there are millions of women self-help groups working across the country, and many of them work with the NRLM. So we looked at this whole capital, and we thought let's work with it. Then we worked. We first of all established the Center for Excellence on Nutrition, Diets, etc. at the Lady Irwin College, and a lot of things. So we went quite systematically in terms of addressing the whole issue of taking science to the grassroots, and started working with the about 356 villages which are evaluation sites. So we, with NRLM, we have a agreement that these are evaluation sites. That's why we started the Center for Excellence before even starting the program. And right now the end-line evaluation is on. Of course, there were mid-term sort of based on the monitoring, based on the feedback we were receiving, we did change the program as well. So from food security, nutrition security, we went on to add hygiene, water, sanitation into it, partly because as gentleman from Siddharth Nagar was mentioning, it's the absorption and the retention of food is equally important. We had a runaway success in this program, in a sense that a lot of social capital has been built. All those ideas which Siddharth Nagar was talking about, Nutri Gardens, etc., everything has been tried and taken to scale. Then we decided that, okay, the basics have been achieved, but if we have this social and technical capital, if we do not reinvest it in addressing the foundational risks, which are disasters are definitely there, then the gender-based violence, gender inequity. So the next, so this program is called Swabhiman program. So the next version of Swabhiman program addresses gender inequity, gender-based violence, etc. So using the same capital, addressing the needs of women, adolescent girls, and so on and so forth. So my first suggestion is reinvestment. Whenever, because we all, civil society, we create a lot of social capital. Wherever we go, we mobilize and organize communities. We work with them for 2-3 years. We build a lot of capacity, but reinvestment of what we have harvested back into the community. I think that's an important learning for us. In this whole process, we work both on demand and supply side, and in between also brought in the scientific rigor into it, a lot of documentation. So I think the second suggestion is to invest good enough in documentation, knowledge management, information management, so that we are able to take the right kind of scientific rigor to the district level and sub-district level. I think I can stop here, and maybe if there are any questions, I could come back.
I just want to ask you, did you do any monitoring of, after you did this first set of investment of all these things you said, you've done them to scale, did you find any impact? I mean, looking into what data, the national level data, was there any further improvement on these nutrition based indicators? Was it better than the national average?
Hold on for a month or so, you will get all the data from the endline evaluation. But monitoring, tracking of results is a constant process. I mean, it's not one time thing. One thing which we learned quite quickly was that working with the self-help groups, they do all their regular stuff, the credits and all the accounting and the livelihoods. But in National Rural Livelihoods Mission, there are other 2 tiers where you can do social action. There is money available for doing social action, and that is the second phase of our program, where we are working more at the level of village organization, federation, etc. And the UNICEF is actually not investing a lot of money in it. Major part of the investment is in this Lydia Wynne College Center for Excellence. Otherwise, majority of investment is through the NRLM. So we created very interesting models of invested service, what we call invested service. So the Sakhis, as we call them, they would do assessments. They would do targeted assessment of families, figure out which one of the 18 they have 18 types of I would say packages which they can provide in terms of livelihood support. So they would assess, but for each of these activities, including assessment, including analysis, etc., planning, it's paid for. So through NRLM, the self-help group members are paid for these. So I think that's one of our, I would say, a success, that majority of time we using self-help group members for doing a lot of social action, but there is no monetary return for that.
You're linking them to government programs. That's very important.
Linking, but also building what I call, see, men always portray as professionals. No? Whatever you little do, you become a professional. Women, whatever they do, they just do the labor work. But now that the whole status of that work has changed, that now you earn for that. You're not doing volunteering alone. I think that's a subtle message in terms of gender transformation, that women are professionals and they're doing this work professionally, evaluating a family on their nutrition status, their health status, and so on and so forth. I think lots of such,
I think it's wonderful.
tangible and intangible results.
We've gone way beyond actually than what not myopically looking into undernutrition, but way beyond on how to really control it, way beyond it. Yeah. I think, thank you very much. I think very, very, very informative presentation. And I think you've already given 2 recommendations already on rebuilding, reinvesting on what you already, of the wealth that you have created. So reinvesting on that so that you build on the strong base that you already have, like a big building. Bigger, you have a strong base, you have a long building coming up on that. So I think it's a very strong foundation. So building that. Yes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Sarabjit, no, one of the things that we have noted is that a lot of the conversation, policy conversation around nutrition, food security happens till the food reaches the doorsteps of the household. But not much is discussed, especially in the public domain or in the policies or the development discourse, on what happens inside the family. Is there any suggestion, any thoughts as to what, because getting food to the family is one part of the challenge, but inside the family, especially when we are talking about a gender element, inside the family, how does food get redistributed? Is there something?
Range of things, for example, pregnancy, pregnancy, so I think we should have wider sort of expectations from the. That's my key message. That those four trivial things that women should be eating first or together with the family, of course they should, but that will come out of their wider sort of the shift in power and the whole status of girl child and women in the society. So I think moving towards I was talking to madam during the lunchtime that for millions of years we've been living in men's world where men have defined the rules of the game. When women come to power of in a position of leadership, they still live in the men's world. They don't shift to women's world, and the rules of game now have to be defined differently, and women have to take leadership for that. And we, if we keep talking about the same problem, we still remain in the logic of the old problem. The logic of the new problems definition should be done by women, not by men. So the whole
But
process.
What Asif is saying has a value to it, that we still a little bit of monitoring of what is happening inside. Shows that India has the maximum deprivation, and secondly it shows that the staple non-staple is not distributed, and thirdly it shows that women have been most deprived during that pandemic situation. So intra-family, what's really happening outside and done would be worth knowing it, but because I mean, to support it, yeah, we should go forward, definitely, there's no doubt about that. But intra-family, we need to know possibly, since you're reaching the households, having this base information created will always help, whether women are getting equal food or they're not getting equal food. People have been talking mindset and attitude and all that. So it will be worth, I think, that as you make your base stronger. Is that happening or not really? Thank you very much for a very, very nice presentation. Very nice on nutrition from an architect. So I think it's an excellent, and an urban planner. So thank you very much. We will now go into our next virtual presentation to Dr. Shivani Dhar from UNICEF. Shivani, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are very clearly. You can go ahead. Your colleague just spoke, Mr. Sahota.
Right.
So now he's an architect speaking on nutrition. Now we are going to hear a nutritionist speaking on nutrition.
Thank you so much. And I would like to thank Madam, you and the entire panel for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share the Bihar experience and what we have done in the state. And while I was listening to Sarabjit ji, and so what he was talking about Swabhiman, and even when Sharika and others were speaking earlier, so nutrition is actually not only, about getting food to the house. I think there's an echo or something. It is also ensuring that I think there's an echo. Is it audible? Yeah. Should I speak? Yeah, should I speak now? Yeah, I think the voice is very low.
Can you
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear
can
you
you hear
well.
me? Now better.
Yes. So should I start?
She can't hear me. She can't hear me.
I
Akshit,
could hear you
She
now.
can hear you. I think tell her to go ahead. Huh? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Right. Yes, I can. I can.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, it's what I was hearing everybody else speak. So it's not only getting food to the household, but ensuring that the mothers and the children, there's a fair distribution, and the most people who really require, they get their fair share. So I mean, I'll just share my experience on working in Bihar, and when we see undernutrition, especially childhood undernutrition, because I'm working with severe acute malnutrition and you see that the data, the NFHS 5 and all, it is kind of gender neutral. You see that there's not much difference in undernutrition indicators, stunting and wasting in terms of boys and girls, and in some places even worse in boys. So then you go to the community, and there you see that there's a clear difference in the care practices. Definitely boys are cared much more. But why does the indicator does not show early in the first 5 years? If you see the 5 to 9 years data, CNNS was measuring that, the survey which was done a few years back, and there you see differences start appearing as the boys and girls grow older. But in the under fives and the under twos specifically, you realize that basically the nutrition and status is linked very closely to the mother's status. I mean, the mother is common, whether boys or girls, they all have mothers who are females and who are themselves, they're very young. Bihar specifically, we have around 40% girls getting married under 18. The mothers are undernourished themselves. There is lack of awareness, lack of support, educational qualification is less. Then there is lack of access to resources, the money, who goes to the market, who has the buying power, who has the decision making power. So you realize that all of these make a very they are actually impacting the nutrition status of the women as well as the children, the next generation. So when we speak about ensuring food security, gender becomes very, very important. And we know there are gender differences in adolescence. We know that while if you see the NFHS 5 data that we see from Bihar, while girls are 65%, adolescent girls are anemic, 35% is in boys. So we all know that. We also know there are micronutrient deficiencies. But when we design interventions in the government level, many of them are from a gender neutral strategy. So I would also share a couple of examples from Bihar. And one of them is what Sarabjit ji was also sharing, which is the Swabhiman. He was sharing, I think, at a macro level and the vision level, but I would maybe go into a little more detail on what we are doing in Bihar. And also one which was Ankuran. So Ankuran is basically a school-based nutrition strategy where we worked very closely in Purnia district. Both Ankuran and Swabhiman were co-located. So while Ankuran was based on, it's a school nutrition, so the point was improving dietary diversity at school and household level. So how we did this? In few schools where UNICEF was collaborating, and now, through the midday meal directorate, which works the education department. So the part was, one was of course establishing Nutri Gardens and ensuring that the use of the Nutri Gardens is also included in the midday meals. This was pre-COVID. I mean, after COVID, it has not been, it is like only picking up now. Then the nutrition awareness through morning assemblies, classroom sessions, the Bal Sansad and Meena Manches, which are active in government schools. So these things were practiced, and the wash interventions again were integrated with hand wash stations, toilets, the MHM, Menstrual Hygiene Management System. So all of these were indicated along with IFA supplementation under WIFs or RKSKN, which is now also comes under the ambit of AMB. So all these things were taken, and it was a major success. We started from 10 schools and then moved on to 50 and then to 100. And then the MDM directorate And the Department of Education has taken it across scale in all 38 districts in Bihar, working through their own funds, where UNICEF is basically supporting technically. We also have a partnership with Agriculture University, and this has been a major success, because when you see those children and the transformation it has brought in both boys and girls regarding food, because they are helping in the kitchen gardens and then they're taking these learnings back home. So this was a very important thing where we were working with both boys and girls, and increasing their sensitivity and orienting them to about nutrition. The second thing that I would also mention is the Swabhiman project, which again Sarabjit ji was referring to. So in Swabhiman, in 2 districts of Purnia, and we were working very closely with SRLM, the Jivika, the Bihar Rural Livelihood Project. And here it is basically strengthening the system actions through system strengthening, and leading and linking the mothers and to the entitlements which are there in the government systems, plus also community level actions, which through Poshan Sakhis and Kishori Sakhis, who hold PLA meetings with these women and girls, adolescent girls, and educate them and create awareness. So there were 5 actions which were happening, which are happening here. One is how we could improve the food and nutrition intake at household level. So one thing was counseling, while educating how much should a woman eat during her pregnancy and her lactation, what is the requirement, what are the various food groups which should be included. We also have a partnership with Agriculture University Home Science Department, and they have helped cultivate the locally available. For example, maize is grown in Purnia, but it is not eaten as a habit. It was like either sold or given to animals. So how to introduce such locally available foods which are there into their food habits. Then working through NSFIS, which is a nutri-sensitive integrated farming system. So working with the State Rural Livelihood Mission, here Nutri Gardens, then poultries and fisheries and mushroom farming, and all these things were inculcated. And the women kisans, or the female farmers, were linked with livelihood. So this is again a model which gave us a lot of success, and it transformed the lives of these women, because when these things are produced as household levels, of course the first they also have to sell it, but there is availability of these food products at household level. And Bihar, we know more than 90% is non-vegetarian, egg eating. So if there is availability, then people eat. So that issue of not consuming animal food is not there. Apart from that, preventing micronutrient deficiencies and anemias through supplementation and linking with foods. Then increasing access to services was also done. So for example, linking the pregnant women to VHSND services. Then adolescent girls, a nutritional risk assessment. The height and weight is measured, the MUAC is measured. And then if the women are found to be nutritionally at risk, they are linked to counseling and wherever the services are available. Wash is again very important, and I think one by one all speakers have mentioned that. So water and sanitation, and this was through awareness, of course, and then linking to toilet building and toilet usage, because Jivika in Bihar is again working very closely with the rural development on toilets and wash. So that was also very important. And then linking with family planning services through targeting the eligible couples who are there, and so that the preconception period is also strengthened. So poorly spaced or unwanted pregnancies. And as we realize, and all of us have been talking, COVID kind of changed this in some ways, because regular activities, group-based counselings kind of got disrupted. Then again, as we know, gender issues became very important, because gender-based violence became very important, and mental health and psychosocial support. So these were identified as issues, and on the basis of this, there has been some change, and a Swabhiman Plus has now been introduced, where mental health and psychosocial support has been introduced. Then identifying gender-based violence and how to tackle it through the SHGs and the groups is also one of the issues. So the point is how to, make this a gender transformative intervention. One important thing, and how they are doing it now, is either face to face through the Poshan Sakhis and the counselors, field counselors, but also telephonic services which are being carried out through the national center, which Sarabjit ji was also referring to. And this has now started and it is being implemented. And we don't have the results from this as of now, but we do have the results of the pre-COVID interventions, and I can share with the group if we have time for that. So what we realize is that somewhere, linking of men also becomes very important, because when we speak about women and empowering women, which is of course important, but how to introduce positive models of masculinity among boys, how to introduce the diverse forms, and how to link and sensitize boys. So that is something which had been missing from our discourse earlier. We were more focused on women and adolescent girls in this, but that is something which is being added now, so that we also reach the boys and sensitize them how their actions lead to difficulties in the lives of women who are their family or women they're close to. So that is where I would end my statement, and then if there are questions we can answer. I can go further into that and even share some data if you would like. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Need to touch upon all sectors. The intersectoral coordination and intersectoral working to go towards a common goal is something very, very important, I think. And I'm very glad that you all actually brought in a lot of new issues, like agricultural-based, decision-based agriculture, which is something which none of us talked from the morning. That was something very important. So I'm very glad that you have brought in a couple of new things into the whole process. And you'll be glad to know that more than 620 participants nationally and internationally are listening to you. So I think that's something. So they may have questions which may be shared later on also.
Absolutely,
So
very happy to be a part of this.
Just give us 2 recommendations, if you would. What you feel should be done, and perhaps what even can plan, sort of in their future planning, add that onto their whole building of their future plan of action. So can you give us 2 very short recommendations? 2 recommendations.
Okay. The recommendations could be so many. Working on gender and masculinity and boys. I think that is very important. Reaching out to men, because that is something that we are missing. But as a programming indicator, NSFIS, which is Nutri-Sensitive Integrated Farming, this is something that we are taking up with SRLM here, and also trying to get it scaled up across. Because that is important, because it gives the women and household access to livelihood as well as food. So it brings food to the table. That is important. Secondly, the system part is kind of weak, because there are entitlements, there are services, but whether it reaches. So for example, ICDS has SNP, but in Bihar it is not universal. And then whether it is reaching an inadequate amount to the women. Similarly, health, there are so many services and availability, but whether they are reaching all the women. So somewhere, if we could work together for communication, for strengthening the delivery of system, reaching the unreached, that is something important. I would also think communication strategies, gender becomes very important. I would think that is more than what you asked for. So that's it. Yeah.
You can add some more too.
So that's it.
Thank you very much, Shivani. That was an excellent presentation. Very comprehensive, touching upon a lot of new issues that I mentioned just now. And I'm sure if there's anything else you want to know, Plan will get in touch with you in future.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We now ask, Rajiv, the last one, our last speaker, Mr. Rajiv Kumar Singh, General Secretary of Mr. Shambhunath Singh Research Foundation. Waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, ma'am. Respected Chair, Dr. Indra Chakrati ji, मेरे co-speakers, Dr. Unni Krishnan ji, Sharika Yunus ji, Sarabjit Singh Sohata ji, और ऑनलाइन इस प्रोग्राम से जुड़ी हुई शिवानी दर जी और CDO सिद्धार्थ नगर। सबसे पहले मैं प्लान इंडिया का धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं कि आपने मुझे अवसर दिया इस प्रोग्राम में अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस को शेयर करने के लिए। बेसिकली शंभुनाथ सिंह रिसर्च फाउंडेशन एक चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के रूप में जाना जाता है, लेकिन पिछले एक दशक में, एक डिकेड में हम लोगों ने प्लान इंडिया के साथ, मंच पर बैठी शारिका यूनुस जी, वर्ल्ड फूड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ, सेव द चिल्ड्रन के साथ, न्यूट्रिशन के फील्ड में भी हम लोगों ने जो ग्रास रूट लेवल पे कुछ काम किए हैं और जो एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं और उनसे जो लर्निंग्स हैं, उस लर्निंग के आधार पर कुछ सजेशंस हैं, उनको लेकर के मैं आपके बीच में हूँ। न्यूट्रिशन एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जो बहुत सारी मान्यताओं के साथ, बहुत सारे कल्चरल इश्यूज़ के साथ, जेंडर के साथ सबसे घुला मिला हुआ है, एक दूसरे के साथ लिंक्ड है। और ख़ास तौर पे जब हम जेंडर इक्वलिटी की बात करते हैं न्यूट्रिशन को लेकर के, तो एक बहुत बड़ा गैप दिखाई पड़ता है हमें, ख़ास तौर पे ईस्टर्न यूपी में, जहाँ से मैं आता हूँ, गंगा का जो प्लेन एरिया है। हालांकि फूड ग्रेन्स काफ़ी हैं वहाँ पे, लेकिन फिर भी बहुत सारे ऐसे क्षेत्र हैं, बहुत सारे ऐसे वर्ग हैं जहाँ तक फूड सप्लाई उस तरीके से नहीं हो पाती है जिससे फूड डाइवर्सिटी हो और लोगों का जो न्यूट्रिशनल लेवल है वो उस तरीके से सिक्योर हो। एक तो जेंडर को लेकर के भी एक मान्यता है कि खासतौर पे उस एरिया में शुरू से ही बच्चों को, खासतौर पे लड़कियों को, उनकी मदर्स इस तरीके से ग्रूम अप करती हैं कि पहले पिता को, फिर भाई को, सबको फीड करने के बाद ही तुम्हारा नंबर आएगा और जो कुछ अंत में बचेगा वो फिर उनको इनटेक करना है। तो वहीं से एक इम्बैलेंस की शुरुआत होती है और वो इम्बैलेंस उसके साथ और भी इश्यूज जाकर के आगे जोड़ते हैं। अर्ली मैरिज है, अर्ली प्रेगनेंसी है, तो वो सारा जो एक विशेष साइकिल बनती है वो पूरे आगे के जनरेशन को भी जो है वो प्रभावित करती है। उसको एड्रेस करने के लिए हम लोगों ने जो शुरुआत की थी प्लान इंडिया के साथ, फिर बाद में वर्ल्ड फूड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ भी, सेव द चिल्ड्रन के साथ भी, उसमें सबसे पहले हम लोगों ने इस प्रॉब्लम को चैलेंज करने के लिए 4 अलग अलग स्टेजेस पे हम लोगों ने काम करना शुरू किया जो है। सबसे पहले सीधे हम लोगों ने बच्चों के साथ काम करना शुरू किया, इंडिविजुअल्स के साथ, फैमिली के साथ, कम्युनिटी के साथ और गवर्नमेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स जो इससे जुड़े हुए हैं उनके साथ मिलकर के जो है। और सबसे पहले जब हम लोगों ने इंडिविजुअल्स के साथ काम करना शुरू किया तो उसमें हम लोगों ने उस एरिया में जो आंगनवाड़ी कार्यकर्तियाँ थी उनके साथ मिल करके हम लोगों ने जो स्टंटेड, वेस्टेड और अंडरवेट जो बच्चे थे उनकी मॉनिटरिंग हम लोगों ने की। उनको डोर टू डोर जा करके हम लोगों ने सारे बच्चों का मेजरमेंट करके पूरा उनका एक स्टेटस हम लोगों ने जो प्लान के साथ प्रोग्राम था अंकुर, उसमें हम लोगों ने किया और करीब 250 बच्चों का हम लोगों ने एक इस तरीके से पूरा मेजरमेंट करके और उसके बाद वहाँ पर हम लोगों ने स्नेह शिविरों का आयोजन किया था जो अपने आप में एक बिल्कुल अलग तरीके का कार्यक्रम था। और कम्युनिटी के अंदर ही कैंप करके बच्चों को हम लोगों ने वापस उनको फिर से जो कुपोषित बच्चे थे उनको सुपोषण की मुख्य धारा में उनको हम लोग ले आए। और इसके साथ साथ जब हम परिवार के साथ काम करते थे तो परिवार में भी हम लोगों ने फैमिली को न्यूट्रिशन के महत्व को लेकर के, जेंडर के महत्व को लेकर के हम लोगों ने उनके साथ इंडिविजुअल काउंसलिंग की और कम्युनिटी में भी इसी तरीके से कम्युनिटी मीटिंग्स करके हम लोगों ने उनके साथ अवेयरनेस के लेवल पर बातचीत किया। और जो सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट इशू था वो था गवर्नमेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ, जो खास तौर पे हमारा जो ICDS का जो सिस्टम है और हेल्थ का जो सिस्टम है, जो 2 मेजर डिपार्टमेंट इसके लिए माने जाते थे, उनको उनके साथ उनकी ट्रेनिंग, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग को लेकर के हम लोगों ने काम किया। और इसके साथ साथ मल्टी सेक्टरल कन्वर्जेंस को लेकर के भी हम लोगों ने काम किया। और अभी जो पीछे शिवानी जी भी बता रही थी, तो डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स के क्या रोल हो सकते हैं उसको लेकर के एक हम लोगों ने डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के साथ एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पर हम लोगों ने एक कमेटी भी फॉर्म की बिफोर स्टार्टिंग ये हमारा जो स्टेट न्यूट्रिशन मिशन था उसके पहले। और उस जो कन्वर्जेंस का जो मॉडल था उसको वहाँ के डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने, भदोही एंड वाराणसी में दोनों की बात कर रहा हूँ, उसने काफ़ी उस मॉडल को अप्रिशिएट किया। और बाद में फिर जो हमारा स्टेट न्यूट्रिशन मिशन जो बना, उसकी एक तरीके से बेसिक नींव जो है वो वहीं से ली गई थी जो है। और इसमें हर डिपार्टमेंट का क्या एक रोल हो सकता है, एक उसको हम लोगों ने खुद से ड्राफ्ट किया और डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के थ्रू उसको ऑथेंटिकेट कराया। और आज भी वो जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल की कमेटी है, फिर उसके बाद एसडीएम के अध्यक्षता में ब्लॉक लेवल की कमेटीज़ हैं, और फिर गांव पर जो ग्राम प्रधान की अध्यक्षता में जो पोषण समितियां हैं, वो पोषण समितियां आज भी उन सारी चीज़ों को जो है वो आगे कंटिन्यू कर रही हैं जो है। इसमें हर डिपार्टमेंट का अपना एक सेपरेट जो रोल है, आईसीडीएस और हेल्थ का ऑब्वियसली बड़ा रोल है, लेकिन उसके अलावा जैसे पोषण वाटिका की बात हो रही थी अभी, न्यूट्री गार्डन्स की, तो उसके लिए जो उद्यान विभाग है उसने फलदार पौधे उपलब्ध कराए, और बहुत सारी प्लान के साथ ही हम लोगों ने लैंडलेस खेती की ट्रेनिंग सीखी। और जो ऐसे परिवार, खास तौर पे जो एक हमारे यहाँ ट्राइब है, मुसहर कम्युनिटी जिसको कहते हैं, जो बहुत ज़्यादा फूड इनसिक्योर कम्युनिटी है, वहाँ पर उनके पास बिल्कुल भी लैंड नहीं होता है, अपने घर की भी ज़मीन नहीं है, वहाँ पे उनको बोरे में किस तरीके से फलदार पौधे लगाए जाए, उस तरीके की चीज़ें हम लोगों ने शुरुआत की। सहजन के पौधे का किस तरीके से इस्तेमाल हो सकता है, क्योंकि वो वहाँ गाँव में बहुतायत मिलता है, और उसके माध्यम से किस तरीके से न्यूट्रिशन को हम लोग सिक्योर करने की कोशिश किए, वो एक सारी चीज़ें जो है हम लोग की लर्निंग रही है। तो इस सारी चीज़ों की जो हमारी सीख थी, उसको लेकर के हम लोगों ने जो कुछ अब तक सीखा है, उसके आधार पे कुछ एक छोटे रिकमेंडेशन है। यहाँ बहुत बड़े बड़े लोग हैं, मुझे उसके बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा जानकारी नहीं है, लेकिन जो ग्रास रूट लेवल का जो हमारा एक्सपीरियंस है वो इस तरीके से है कि एक तो गाँव में अवेयरनेस की अभी भी बहुत कमी है, और ख़ास तौर पे जेंडर को लेकर के। तो हम जिन पॉकेट्स में काम करते रहे प्लान इंडिया के साथ या और फंडिंग एजेंसीज के साथ, वो एक बहुत छोटा सा एरिया था, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के लेवल पे या स्टेट लेवल पे ये अपने बड़े प्रोग्राम में शामिल करने की ज़रूरत है। और ख़ास तौर पे अवेयरनेस को लेकर के और जेंडर इक्वलिटी को लेकर के, न्यूट्रिशन के संदर्भ में मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, उसमें इस पर बहुत ज़्यादा काम करने की आवश्यकता है। दूसरा, जो आईसीडीएस का सिस्टम है जो इसको एड्रेस करता है माल न्यूट्रिशन को, वो अपने आप में एक तो ओवरबर्डेंड है। जो हमारी कार्यकर्तियां हैं वो पूरी तरह से ट्रेंड नहीं है। एक बार जब उनका अपॉइंटमेंट होता है, उसी समय उनकी एक ओरिएंटेशन ट्रेनिंग होती है। उसके बाद अगर कुछ हम जैसे एनजीओस के लोग अगर उसकी ट्रेनिंग कर दिए तो कर दिए, गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम में दोबारा से उनकी कोई ट्रेनिंग का या रिफ्रेशर ट्रेनिंग का, जैसे एएनएम और आशास के रिफ्रेशर ट्रेनिंग हेल्थ सेक्टर में होते हैं, आईसीडीएस में इसकी अपॉर्चुनिटी बहुत ही कम है जो है। तो वहाँ पर उनको ट्रेनिंग एंड कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग की ज़रूरत है। मुझे लगता है कि जैसे अभी बिहार का मैं अनुभव सुन रहा था कि वहाँ पर पोषण सखी जैसा कार्यक्रम है, तो मुझे लगता है कि यूपी में भी स्टेट न्यूट्रिशन मिशन की तरफ से पैरेलली, जैसे हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स में अलग अलग पैरा स्टाफ हमने दिए हैं, तो पोषण को लेकर के भी काम करने की ज़रूरत है। मैं अभी देख रहा था जो ईसीसी पॉलिसी 2013 की ड्राफ्ट हुई है, और उसी समय फूड सिक्योरिटी एक्ट भी हमारा आया था। उसमें बहुत सारे इस तरीके के प्रोविजंस हैं जहां पर हम लोग अर्ली चाइल्डहुड एजुकेशन को और अर्ली चाइल्डहुड डेवलपमेंट को, दोनों को लेकर के अलग से काम करने की ज़रूरत है। लेकिन आज भी सिस्टम में एक आईसीडीएस वर्कर के जिम्मे ही सारा काम होता है। इलेक्शन के टाइम पे उनकी बीएलओ की ड्यूटी लग जाती है। अभी कोई भी आईसीडीएस वर्कर इस समय यूपी में खाली नहीं है। और उसके अलावा जो टेक होम राशन है, ये सारी चीज़ें दुनिया भर के उनके और काम हैं। एक रिकमेंडेशन और मेरी तरफ से है कि बहुत सारी लड़कियां जो ड्रॉप आउट हो जाती है, वो स्कूल के का जो मिड डे मील सिस्टम है उससे वो बाहर हो जाती हैं। उसके अलावा आईसीडीएस की तरफ से एडोलसेंट का जो प्रोग्राम है, उसमें एक मैं जो ग्राउंड रियलिटी में जानता हूँ वो मैं आपके सामने रख रहा हूँ कि एक आईसीडीएस सेंटर पर सिर्फ 4 लड़कियों को एक समय में एनरोल किया जाता है, वो भी सिर्फ 3 महीने के लिए। तो हम इससे सोच सकते हैं कि गांव में जितनी लड़कियां जो ड्रॉप आउट हो चुकी हैं, जो अनेक वजहों से स्कूल नहीं जा पा रही हैं जो है, वो उस पूरे सिस्टम से, न्यूट्रिशन के पूरे सिस्टम से, पूरे अम्ब्रेला से वो बाहर हो गई। तो उनके लिए हमें कुछ मैकेनिज्म करने की ज़रूरत है। मे बी जैसे अभी ये ये इंटीग्रेटेड चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन स्कीम में जैसे स्पॉन्सरशिप प्रोग्राम है, इस तरीके का कोई न्यूट्रिशन कवरेज प्रोग्राम या नहीं है, तब तक हम उनको इसी स्पॉन्सरशिप प्रोग्राम से या फॉस्टर केयर प्रोग्राम से भी उनको हम लिंक कर सकते हैं, ताकि वो लड़कियां जो इस पूरे दायरे से बाहर चली गई हैं उनको इस सिस्टम के साथ कवर किया जा सके। तो ये कुछ हमारे सुझाव थे। और मिड डे मील स्कीम वो थोड़ा मुझे लगता है कि और उस अम्ब्रेला को जो अभी कक्षा 8 तक है उसको कक्षा 10 तक हमको ले जाने की आवश्यकता है। जो मिड डे मील के अलावा कोटे की दुकानों में भी जो अभी फूड सिक्योरिटी का जो हमारा प्रोग्राम है, जो राशन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का, उसमें जो अगर ऐसे चिन्हित परिवार हों जहाँ पर कुपोषित बच्चे हैं, उनके लिए एक्स्ट्रा कुछ यूनिट्स बढ़ा करके उनको कोटे की दुकानों से राशन दिया जाए। और इसके साथ साथ जो एक हम लोगों का की लर्निंग वर्ल्ड फूड प्रोग्राम के साथ रही है फोर्टिफिकेशन ऑफ मिड डे मील की, तो वो एक पायलट प्रोजेक्ट था बनारस में। और हम लोगों को ये जानकारी थी कि वो पूरे स्टेट में इसका कवरेज शुरू होगा। और बाद में ये भी जानकारी मिली कि जो कोटे का राशन है उसमें भी फोर्टिफिकेशन होगा। तो अभी उसमें क्या प्रगति है मुझे नहीं मालूम, लेकिन ये भी एक अच्छा कदम होता न्यूट्रिशन सिक्योरिटी को और आगे ले जाने के लिए। तो इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं अपनी बात को विराम देता हूँ। थैंक यू।
Sharika would like to respond.
I just wanted to, number one, it was an absolute pleasure to see you again, Rajiv ji. On the fortification project, on the 15th of August, the Prime Minister announced it from the ramparts of the Red Fort, so now it's being scaled up throughout the country. So your support helped.
I think you've already given your recommendation. तब दे ही चुका है, very very good recommendations. I think some new things have come out, especially dropout girls. I had no idea that they're not neither covered here nor covered there, so they're falling in between a gap. So they're not out of school, also they are not in school. So I think that's something, that's a group maybe plan should think of, the dropout girls. Like they're not on any side. So I think it's a very interesting thing. Each lecture we're getting something very interesting coming out, something very new which I didn't know. So I think it's a learning process for me also. So I think we're already running late. So I think no more. I think recommendation is going to be prepared, and I think we had 6 excellent speakers. Each one gave a new eyesight to something, new light to something, and from very grassroots level experience to very policy level experiences, I think, which we had to go through. So thank you very much, everyone. And I think I've gained a lot from this session myself personally, and I thank Plan for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you.